You ever hear the sound of a BMW's tires chewing up your front lawn for the 47th time I have? Believe me, you don't forget it. It's a wet, ugly crunch, a sound that gets in your bones, especially when it's your own grass, your own piece of hard-won peace. And every time it was the same person, Marlene Kensington, rolling her bright, spotless white BMW straight across what I'd spent years perfecting. And every time she stepped out, heels sharp as knives, a clipboard hugged to her chest like it was the nuclear codes, walking like she owned the entire zip code. First time it happened, I tried to handle it the old-fashioned way. Politely. "Marlene, could you not park on my lawn, please?" She barely gave me the courtesy of looking up. "This is HOA business, Eugene. Your grass'll grow back. Don't be dramatic." 10 times later, I realized this wasn't just disrespect, it was a challenge. By the time we hit number 47, I could see it in her eyes. She wanted to see how far she could push me. I could almost hear her thinking, let's see if the old man finally snaps. Thing is, I don't snap easy. I solve problems. That's what 40 years as an engineer teaches you. You look for patterns, you look for weaknesses, and you don't quit. So while Marlene played at being the HOA queen, I started working on a solution she'd never see coming. My secret weapon. A $5 can of expanding foam bought at the hardware store on a day when my patience was running out. If you've ever rooted for the underdog, keep listening. You're gonna like how this ends. See, I never set out to make trouble. I'm 63. Most of my life I made things work, first as a mechanical engineer, then, after I got forced out early in the last round of layoffs, as a handyman and an amateur inventor. My wife Sandra used to joke I could fix anything except her overwatered houseplants. Our corner lot meant everything to me. Precision, pride, order. That lawn, it wasn't just grass. It was therapy. It was Saturday mornings with my old Craftsman mower cutting diagonal lines so clean the neighbors would slow down just to look. Honestly, every inch of that yard was earned. I named my tools, I measured every pegboard hook, twice I cleaned up after myself because, well, that's what made me feel in control. Especially after retirement didn't turn out the way I'd planned. Diabetes, shrinking pension. Sandra's memory sometimes flickering in and out. The lawn was something I could still make perfect. And that was enough until Marlene rolled up. Now, Marlene Kensington, imagine if every HOA horror story grew legs and got a trust fund. That's her. She never worked a real job, but her family's old steel money kept her in designer bags and endless charity events. She ran the HOA like a private fiefdom. She'd inherited the role, and every time the neighborhood tried to vote her out, her friends' deep pockets somehow turned the tide. Her BMW was the flagship. She'd drive around looking for anything to cite. And the community center that sat right behind my property just a hedge away. There was plenty of parking, but one day Marlene discovered a shortcut. If she just cut across my lawn, she could shave 30 seconds off her walk. And that for her was reason enough. First time she claimed her heels were too expensive for the gravel lot. Next thing I knew, there were deep, muddy ruts in my grass. I went out, asked her to stop. She brushed me off. "I'm doing important work for the neighborhood, Eugene." That night I stood in my workshop, running my fingers over my favorite wrench, staring out at those fresh tire marks. Sandra found me there hours later. "You okay, honey?" I lied, said I was fine. Second time I tried a softer approach. Spent my Sunday at Home Depot, got 50 feet of fancy white rope and some posts. Made a little barrier, nothing aggressive, just a line to say this is mine. Measured it out, made it look like it belonged on a golf course. Marlene's reaction. Drove right through it, didn't even slow down, snapped the rope, flattened the posts, and left them in the mud like it was nothing. Next morning I got a letter, official, HOA letterhead, all lawyered up. Unsightly barriers. Emergency access violation. $150 fine per day until removal. Signed, Marlene Kensington. My rope wasn't blocking anything, but that wasn't the point. It was about power. And she wanted me to know exactly how little I had. Fine. If it was going to be a war of paperwork, she'd picked the wrong guy. I started documenting everything, took pictures, made notes, logged every rut and every incident. Sandra brought me coffee one morning, saw the growing stack of evidence. She laughed and said, "Remember what your dad always said? The best way to deal with a bully is to become someone they can't predict." I wasn't sure what that meant, but it stuck with me. By Monday, another violation letter arrived. I'd already removed the rope, but Marlene snapped a picture early and claimed I was late. Another fine. I paid, kept the receipt, and started thinking less like a neighbor, more like an engineer. Next twist. Found out Marlene didn't just drive random lines. She parked the same way every time, same spot, same angle, always pausing to check her makeup. Engineers love patterns. Patterns mean you can plan. So I tried signs, 4 big yellow ones, private property, no vehicles. Violators will be towed. Called the non-emergency police to make sure the wording was legal. Put them right where she always drove. What did she do? Barreled through, knocked them flat. This time she brought 3 catering trucks, turning my lawn into a muddy pit, snapping underground sprinklers I'd laid by hand. The smell of diesel, crushed grass, and broken pride hung in the air all afternoon. And then she billed me for damage to community landscaping. Sent an $847 invoice, claimed my signs broke her sprinkler lines. Only thing was, those sprinklers hadn't worked in months. My neighbor Tom, a retired insurance guy, watched it happen. Eugene, she's using your property like a public parking lot and then blaming you for the fallout. Sandra asked me something that night that changed everything. Back when you designed factory lines, what did you do when someone kept sabotaging the process? I said, you document, then you let the saboteur escalate until they hang themselves. She smiled. So what mistake is Marlene gonna make? That's when I called in reinforcements, my insurance company, the county clerk for HOA records, and Danny, my neighbor's college kid who wanted a real journalism scoop. Turns out Marlene was claiming charity tax exemptions for all the damage, writing it off as community improvement, then funneling the payouts through her cousin's fake landscaping business down in Tennessee. Danny uncovered it all, 3 years, $47,000 in fraud, same MO every time. Marlene was running a racket, turning neighbors' misery into tax deductions. Suddenly it wasn't about my grass anymore. This was a federal case. Fraud crosses state lines and the IRS doesn't mess around. But I needed a final undeniable piece of evidence, a public spectacle. That's where the foam canister came in. I drilled a hole right where her tire always landed and set the canister. Covered it with a patch of sod. The physics were simple. When her car parked, the weight would trigger the foam anchoring her BMW until a professional crew came to cut her loose. Embarrassing but harmless. Sandra asked if I was sure. No damage, just humiliation and proof. Our neighbors set up security cameras for good measure. Federal investigators and the IRS quietly came on board, gathering evidence for a much bigger sting. The big day arrived. Marlene's annual Holiday Hope Gala. 65 cars, news cameras, fancy guests. I watched as the valets started lining up cars on my lawn. My heart was pounding. Sandra squeezed my hand. "You ready?" she whispered. I nodded, checking my watch. Marlene's always punctual, 5:45 on the dot. She rolled in white BMW, gleaming, right over the spot. I heard the foam pop. And then magic. Bright yellow foam burst up, wrapping around her tire, hardening in seconds. Marlene hit the brakes, tried to back out, nothing. She was stuck. News cameras caught the whole thing. Her rage, the crowd's laughter, my calm walk across the grass. "1 can of expanding foam," I said to her loud enough for everyone to hear. 47 times you've trespassed, cost me thousands, lied and filed false claims. Now you're parked until you pay for every dollar you stole. The place went dead silent. Marlene turned pale as the tow truck rolled up. Took 2 hours to get her out on live TV, no less. Within 24 hours, the story exploded online. HOA president's BMW trapped by expanding foam during charity event. 2 million views and counting. But the best part, Maria, the federal prosecutor, served her with warrants right there on camera. IRS started their audit. HOA board suspended Marlene pending criminal investigation. The FBI took her files. By winter, restitution checks covered my repair costs. Sandra got her dream greenhouse, and Marlene lost her car, her jewelry, even the condo in Florida. We rebuilt. The neighbors voted in a new board. Transparency rules, public votes, an audit every year. I became the treasurer, started a tool library for everyone, turned my garage into a community space. Danny's expose won awards, inspired state law changes. The foam canister, I keep it on my workbench, a reminder that sometimes the smallest actions bring the biggest change. You know, all those years I thought the worst thing was someone killing my grass. But it wasn't about grass. It was about power, and what happens when good people decide enough is enough. Turns out you can fight City Hall if you're patient, you document everything, and you know how to use a $5 can of expanding foam at exactly the right moment. So tell me, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Ever had an HOA nightmare? Drop your story in the comments. Let's see how many Marlenes are out there and how many folks finally got their justice. Sometimes all it takes is one well-placed idea and the courage to see it through.